And to think so many of you were nervous when Disney bought Marvel. Big Hero 6. This is Disney's latest offering and their first go at a Marvel property, albeit a rather obscure one that they adapted incredibly loosely. That said, there's still the requisite Stan Lee cameo, so keep an eye out for that. This movie's got a whole lot of things going for it, and since they chucked so much of the original source material, including several members of the actual team as it existed in the comic books, you really have to give props to Disney and their approach on this thing. Primarily what it deals with is a hero by the name of Hero. Now, Hero is a young, incredibly intelligent boy. He's about 14 years old, but he's already graduated high school. He's a science and tech whiz. And in the wake of a harsh personal loss, he finds himself being comforted by Baymax. Now, Baymax is a prototype personal care robot, and he is going to absolutely steal your heart. He's just adorable and he's lovable, and they don't get into a lot of the sort of cliche, oh, he's becoming more human. No, his programming gets a little bit better as he interacts more with humans, but he doesn't become more human. He stays the robot. He stays focused on his purpose, and I like that. I think it's always a bit of a cop-out when there's like, oh, machines are developing emotions, and like, well, now you just have an excuse to just write another human character, not on a machine anymore. Some stories earn it, but I like the fact that this didn't go there. In an odd way, Baymax actually reminded me a little bit of Gertie from the movie Moon, which is that he's doing everything he can to be helpful within the parameters he's been given. So he's kind of got tunnel vision, and he's a little bit sort of handcuffed in terms of what he's actually able to do within his main core programming, but he's gonna be as helpful as possible within those parameters. As for other characters, the other makeup of this superhero team are all kids like Hero. They're all a bit older than him. They're all college age, whereas, as I said, he's about 14. But they're all science whiz, well, almost all, but even the one who's sort of the token team goofball and he doesn't have the tech skills that the rest of them, he still has a very creative mind. So in the case of all of them, their minds are really their superpowers much more than the gear and the tech they come up with. That all aids them, but they have developed it, or if they didn't actually build it themselves, they at least thought of what it was that they wanted to have. So their minds are their greatest power, and that's really great because science in superhero context has largely been the realm of villains. I mean, going all the way back to Lex Luthor, sort of the original mad scientist template. It's sort of funny when it comes to comic books. There's this prioritization of physical strength and this weird notion that people who use science, and whether it's chemistry or technology or whatever, to augment themselves and bring themselves up to the level of superheroes, that's somehow cheating and that makes them evil. That's not at all how it should be, but honestly, it's kind of the comic book trope, and comic book movies have kind of been taking that on. Long before Marvel, just the idea of someone who's using their brain to get ahead as opposed to gumption and daring do. And it's nice to get that change where the fact that they're smart is awesome. I mean, I honestly think this is going to turn some kids onto science. I mean, the science in this movie is completely ridiculous. It's all fantasy science, but it gets you kind of pumped for, wow, you can really come up and just do amazing stuff if you have the passion and the mind for it. It's also worth noting it's a wonderfully diverse cast. I mean, Hero himself is Japanese, or at least somewhat Japanese. You can tell in his design and obviously his name. But beyond that, we have a fair amount of diversity in this cast, both in terms of gender and race, and that's just nice. And what's also nice is there's no particular attention drawn to it. They're just, yeah, this is them. They're all smart. Is there a problem? And that's kind of what needs to happen to get in better diversity to work, is you don't draw attention to it, you just do diversity better and just have it be. Just have it be normal. Make that the new normal. And that's what this movie does. The setting is also worth pointing out. Everything takes place in this fictional setting called San Francisco, which, as the name probably implies, is a bit of a mashup between San Francisco and Tokyo. And so it's got diversity, sort of ethnic diversity, just in the setting as well, because it is very much physically San Francisco. It's got the severe hills, and it's got something like the Golden Gate Bridge, but there's this infusion of Japanese aesthetic and that sort of look, that bright-eyed neon look of Tokyo, and it's a really fun marriage, and it makes for some really fun visuals. And visually, this movie is stunning. The action scenes especially, there's a lot of action in this. This is a proper comic book action movie. Let's not mince words about that. This movie's got some really poignant emotional stuff too. As I said, Hero goes through a pretty harsh personal loss early in the movie, and his trying to come to terms with what happened is really the heart of the movie, and that's sort of where his relationship with Baymax comes in. Baymax gets activated because Hero is in pain, and he's doing everything he can to help Hero get to a better place. And Hero's journey, oh god, yeah, Hero's journey, I actually said that. Anyway, that is the main thrust of this movie, and so that does mean that the rest of the team, they get their suits and whatever, that doesn't kick in for a while because this thing really wants to get at this teenager's pain and him trying to work through it. And it plays that very well. And the villain factors into that to a certain extent as well. Now, the villain might be the one slightly weak aspect. In certain aspects, he's great. Visually, he looks great. Though his powers and the technology that he's using looks very cool, and it's definitely a match for the heroes. But I think the film ill-advisedly takes a slight mystery aspect with the villain. I mean, I guess I should have expected it. He's a guy in a mask, so you don't know his face, so they're gonna play up a little bit of mystery to that. It is very easy to guess. Now, that said, there's probably going to be a fair amount of younger viewers who won't see it coming, but anyone who's a little bit older and has seen more than 5 episodes of Scooby-Doo can probably figure out what this character's deal is, or at least who it is, what their deal actually is, and sort of getting into the motivations actually plays very well once the reveal is done. The reveal, it is what it is. It was an easy call for me to make. But the motivations and the way that character plays into Hero's own journey and backstory is actually quite well done. I mean, really, Disney is just on such a roll right now. Ever since Tangled, they have just been, this is the new Disney Renaissance. And this movie, it made me happy. It really is. It's a fantastic time. Whether you are a young kid, have young kids, whether you like comic books, or just like action movies, any of these things are a wonderful reason to go and see this movie. I do hope they get to have a sequel so that we can get a little bit more of the team dynamic as a whole, because as I said, the focus on this is Hero and Baymax, but that really is where it should have been for this particular movie, because Baymax, oh god, Baymax. They used his battery dying basically as an excuse to have a drunk scene in a kid's movie, and it's one of the funniest things that you will see all year. Now, superhero stories actually do have a fairly long tradition in animation. I've talked about these sorts of movies before, animated superhero movies. What is your personal favorite superhero animated movie? Whether it is based off a comic book property like this, or any of the Batman animated movies, or something original like, say, The Incredibles. Whatever it is that you think is the best, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. As for me, I'll be back as soon as I can get my next fix.